Somebody asked me that who do you want to win? Who do you want to win? So I said to them, whoever wins, the reason why that person won is because God wanted that person to win. Because if God did not want him to win, he wouldn't have won. So if it would have been A or B, it's the same. So I said to them, and the person says, and even if the person who didn't want to win wins, you say thank you. That's what the person said to me. So after I said, he said, that's the case. Even if the person who you don't want to wins because God wanted him to win, you say thank you. I said no. And it's not contradictory. God forbid a person experiences tragedy in his life. You say, Dino emis. We identify God as the true judge, meaning whatever he does, it's equitable, although we don't understand it. When something good happens to us and we're able to process the good, we say Shechianu, because we're able to relate to the positiveness of that action. Although belief-wise, we believe in either one is in our best interest, except one is painful, although it's in our best interest, and the other one is not. You have to have a tooth extracted without any Novocaine. It's painful. But once you have that tooth extracted and you don't have a root canal issue any longer or some other issue any longer, afterwards, you're in comfort. But would you prefer not to have the tooth extracted, the tooth to be healthy? Of course. Say if I give you an injection and I save the tooth and you no longer have pain, then you say thank you. And the procedure to save is not painful. But the extraction of the tooth and having the procedure painful, you're happy it was done, but factually, if it could have been done differently, you would have preferred differently. So whatever happens, it's because God wanted it to happen this way. As painful as it may be, the other person may have been as positive towards Israel and may even withhold arms when we need the arms. And the person may not quell anti-Semitism in the United States, may do all those terrible things due to inaction. Right? But nevertheless, you don't say thank you. It's painful. It's like God forbid somebody dies. You say thank you. You know, it's equitable, but you don't say thank you. You say it's equitable. Withholding arms from Israel, although we're surrounded with hundreds of millions of Arabs with ballistic missiles that could blow the whole country to smithereens. We don't understand it. Do you say thank you? It's terrifying. It's equitable, but it's not thank you. It's like dynamis, the same thing. But now, when something positive happens, and the person is favorable towards Jews, towards Israel, towards everything, I'm not even talking about the United States, I'm talking about as a Jew, not to get involved in politics, right? Purely for the Jews' sake, for Israel's sake. We say to God, thank you. Thank you that you made this choice, because for Israel, they're in a better position. The world is not going to step on us like they stepped on us until now. They'll think 50 times before they act, because they know there'll be a reaction. You say thank you on that. And that's the way to see it. So now that it was this way, you give thanks. You say, we're lucky. We're lucky that he won. Not that we were lucky. He won because God chose he should win. Just as if the other one would have won, God chose that other person should win. But we say thank you because of the benefit we see that having this particular person, it's better for Israel, it's better for the Jews versus anti-Semitism. That's the way we have to see it. That's the lens we as Jews have to see it. King Solomon is the wisest human being who ever lived in the history of this world. And he writes one of his scriptures, it's called Koheles. And he writes, there's a time to laugh and there's a time to cry. That sounds profound. You got to have a 20 million IQ to say those words. That's profound. So you could say it and I could say it. God forbid. Person loses his fortune, it's time to cry. He makes a fortune, time to laugh. I need King Solomon to tell me there's time to laugh and time to cry. Simple understanding. So what is he telling me? That there really is a time when you should be crying and you're laughing. Give you an example. There's a person who's a Jew, a cardiologist. He married Caroline Kennedy. He married her in a church in Cape Cod. I think his name was Schlossberg. I don't know how many years ago. It was many years ago. His family was ecstatic, marrying a blue blood. Rose Kennedy's granddaughter, Joe Kennedy's granddaughter, ambassador to England during World War II, a Nazi sympathizer. That's what he was, an anti-Semite. But doesn't make it. But you know what it means to marry a blue blood? But she's not Jewish. Your son's a Jew. We're not that observant. This is a time to celebrate. You're celebrating. There's a time to cry. There's a time to laugh. This is the time you cry. You cry. That's not a time to rejoice. But we're progressive. We live in a different era. We live in a different world. You talk like an archaic person. King Solomon wasn't archaic. He saw from beginning to end backwards and forwards. And he could count 50,000 numbers backwards, not 16 numbers backwards. That was King Solomon. And he's telling you there's a time to cry, and that's a time to cry. The whole world could be laughing. There's a time to cry. A person very secular, son goes to Israel, reattaches to his roots, becomes observant. He becomes a devout Jew. So his parents say, it's a phase. When they realize it's not a phase, we got to send him to a psychiatrist. Got to put the kid on medication. He's going off the deep end. He's becoming this archaic, backward, stunted, mental cripple. We really have a problem. We have to go into family counseling. This is a time to cry. King Solomon says, you don't see it right. This is the time when you laugh. This is the time when you rejoice. The world has it backwards. Just because society says whatever they say, or mankind says what they say, the Torah is immutable. Immutable means it's not just in particular times in history. The values, the perspectives, the laws are immutable, they're eternal. So whatever you believe, that the man who wears tefillin, they used to say he looks like a Martian. Boxes on his head, boxes on his arm. You can call it whatever you want. God says, this is my soldier. When you see that tefillin on his head, and the mankind sees him, if they would see what they would revere that person. This generates a level of cosmic power. That's what it is. But the world doesn't see it that way. It's irrelevant what the world sees, or what the reality is. I'll give you an example, a story I once told. It was an allegory given by the Dubna Magid. This person, his son worked for a summer for a friend on a farm from daybreak to nightfall. 3 hard months, and the son was illiterate. At the end of 3 months, the employer gives his son a check, a piece of paper, $25,000 for 3 months, which even a boor was able to do that, whatever he did. This boy gets a piece of paper after working hard 3 months from morning to night, that he was so exhausted, he just fell in bed and fell asleep at night. Comes back to his father, he's depressed. His father says, why are you depressed? He said, look, I worked 3 months. He gives me a piece of paper with some chicken scratch on it. His father looks at it. His father sees $25,000 with this man's signature, ready for deposit immediately. Cash on hand. The kid doesn't understand. What's obvious to the person who could read it could read the script. This kid thinks you got a piece of paper with some chicken scratch on it. But him being ignorant doesn't change the reality of the value of that piece of paper, because it had a number and it had a signature on it. So what the world says is what? It's irrelevant. The reality is not what the world says. The reality is what it is. Said it's a time to laugh, but the world's crying. They're grieving over it. It's irrelevant, they're grieving. You know, there's a chapter in the end of Sanhedrin speaks about the Mishnah Pirkei Avos that we begin, the introduction, Kol Yisrael yesh lo b'chei labo. Every Jew has a share in the world to come. And the Gemara, then the Gemara speaks about, the Talmud speaks about resurrection. When a person dies, will he be resurrected? The Gemara brings 13 proofs from verses that there is resurrection. From the Torah, from the prophets, from scripture, that there will be resurrection. It's a reality. So Rashi says over there that if you believe it and it's not rooted in text, it doesn't mean anything. Why? Because today you believe, tomorrow you don't believe. Today you're convinced, tomorrow you're not convinced. But if it's rooted in immutable fact, which is scripture or the Torah or prophets, whether you want to believe or not, it's etched in stone. Therefore, it's considered something which is substantial. Otherwise, it's a fleeting thought. And if it's a fleeting thought and it's here today, it could be gone tomorrow. And therefore, the Rambam says, even the Shev Mitzvah Noach, the 7 Noahide laws, what is it rooted in? Even for a non-Jew. It was given at Sinai that a non-Jew was committed to the 7 Noahide laws. Like the Jew is committed to 613 precepts, the non-Jew is committed, because it has to be established as fact. Agree or disagree, it's irrelevant. Once it goes on record as fact, you're bound to it. Well, I disagree. You can't. If it's my opinion, your opinion, I have a right to have an opinion. There's no my opinion, your opinion. There's only one opinion here. There's one position, God's position. And God says the non-Jew has this level of obligation, the Jew has another level of obligation. It becomes immutable. Everything we believe, even the fundamentals, everything has to be immutable. Otherwise, it's not permanent. Because a human being always, due to his experience and exposure to different environments, he takes on different levels of perception, evaluation. Therefore, it has to be fact, etched in stone, which cannot be changed. Okay, we'll meet at 1 o'clock. Hello.
Thank you, Rabbi.